Good evening, friends, and welcome to our Advent reflections for the year 2020. My name is Ramona Samuel, and I am one of the ministers in the Chelmsford Methodist Circuit. Our Advent reflections are taking the place of our usual Wednesday evening prayers throughout the Wednesdays in Advent. In the settle and stir of a burnt orange sunrise, in the lilt and laughter or memory of a table full of friends, in the flash of clarity that turns on the light of insight and leads us toward wisdom, we find the peace that passes all understanding. But there are things we need to understand. Help us hear you in the stories of those who struggle. Peace is what the prophets foretold. Peace is what is sacrificed when profit takes precedence. We light a candle for peace and pray for the courage to stand up for it in this second week of Advent, as the waiting and expectation heighten. Deepen our desire for peace. Like the wise called to journey in those early dawning days, may we seek, strive, search for peace. Like the prophets, old and new, may we cry out for its coming. We light a candle for peace. May it light the way. Reading from Luke chapter 1, verse 22 to verse 25. Meanwhile, the people, I'm starting at verse 21 instead actually. Meanwhile, the people were waiting for Zechariah and wondered at his delay in the sanctuary. When he did come out, he could not speak to them, and they realized that he had seen a vision in the sanctuary. He kept motioning to them and remained unable to speak. When his time of service was ended, he went to his own. After those days, his wife Elizabeth conceived, and for 5 months she remained in seclusion. She said, "This is what the Lord has done for me when he looked favorably on me and took away the disgrace I have endured among my people." This week we are focusing on listening. And so where you are, I want to just do this exercise with you. I want you to look around the room where you are and take in the surroundings, take in what's around you. And see if you can focus on a particular object. What catches your eye? And just stay with that object for a little bit and see if anything is coming to your mind as you look at that object. What might God be saying to you through that object? Listening is something that I think we find difficult as human beings. It is said that most of us, when we are in conversation with someone, we are not truly listening. In fact, what we're doing is formulating responses in our minds based on what is being said to us. And therefore, we are not truly taking in what is being said. How do we make sure we hear God's voice to us? How good are we at listening to what God has to say to us? In our reading with Elizabeth and Zechariah and the people, we see that Zechariah remained speechless. I wonder what that felt like for the people around him as he went back home and so on. And how was it for them to listen to Zechariah in the silence of his words? How good are we at truly listening? And perhaps a good way to listen is to actually stop talking. And so perhaps for Zechariah, he truly learned to listen in those months in which he was not able to speak, because there was no way for him to respond verbally anyway. And so I suspect he had to truly listen. I did the exercise that I talked about just a while ago about looking around the room yesterday. And I was in my study, and as I looked around the room, my study has so many things, lots of images and pictures and books and art stuff and so on. But actually the thing that caused me to bring my eye back to it was this empty bottle which was sat on the shelf. This bottle was there because it's from a pack of a few other bottles like it, except that I wanted some spray bottles, and this is a kind of squirty into your palm one. And so I didn't use this bottle, and it stands on my desk, unused, unnoticed. And as I looked at this bottle, I thought about how sometimes we can miss things because it isn't quite what we're looking for, because it's not quite what we are expecting. And I think that's true for certainly how we hear God's voice to us. We can miss that because perhaps God isn't saying the thing we want God to say. And so things are left unnoticed. But something else came to my mind as I looked at this bottle. And I thought about how we ourselves can be left to one side, empty, unused, unnoticed. And of people in society that we sometimes miss because they do not match up to whatever criteria we have formed in our minds. And so they stand like this bottle, unnoticed, still very much there, but unnoticed, unused. And so perhaps this week we might begin to pay attention to what's around us, because that's a part of listening. Listening really involves, interestingly, I think, our eyes and all our senses, because we can be spoken to in different ways, not just verbally. And so what might God be saying to us this week, this second week of Advent, as we wait, as we listen? Spend some time just taking in what's around you. as you go about your daily life. And ask God to speak to you in those moments. And ask God to open your heart and your ears and your eyes so you can know what God is saying to us. And I want to encourage you to maybe write some thoughts down of what you think God might be saying to you as you spend time reading scripture, as you spend time in prayer, as you spend time looking around your surroundings. Thank you, friends, for joining me tonight. Do join me again next week, Wednesday, where I will be on YouTube again with another reflection. God bless. And as you sleep, may you encounter God in your dreams, in your sleep, and when you awake. God bless, and have a good night.